Hi friends, Prepared Suburbanite here. Today is Labor Day 2018. I often get asked this question in lots of different forms, but it basically boils down to what scenarios do you really prep for? And what I wanted to do is kind of share my thoughts about what I call the prepper's paradox. I'll be right back. When I say prepper's paradox, here's kind of what I mean. There's a mix that goes on in people's minds that can be defined as a paradox. Now, when you're prepping, oftentimes, in fact, you almost have to set goals for yourself. But what is it that you're using as your base plate to set those goals for your prepping? Well, the paradox comes in is that if you can imagine the worst scenario, and I'm not sure what that's going to be, if it's the Yellowstone supervolcano finally erupting and the largest eruption that we've ever seen on the planet, and that's going to just take out everything. It's going to take out the grid. It's going to take out all the transportation systems, all our abilities to deal with what we call normal life around here. It could be something that bad. It could be the kind of a thing that wiped out the dinosaurs. Who knows? But the worst case scenario that you can think of for your personal scenarios, and I guess hurricanes don't normally happen in Kansas, and snowstorms don't happen in Florida to the extent that they have to really worry about it. But think about the worst possible thing that could happen and plan for that. Now that's the paradox, because the chances of the very worst thing in the world happening from a prepper standpoint, from a S hits the fan standpoint, the worst thing you can possibly imagine is really what you should be prepping for. Now, why would that be? Well, here's my thought. If you gear up your prepping plan to deal with the worst case scenario that you can possibly conjure up in your mind, then you're going to be ready for anything between that worst case scenario and what may happen next week when the power goes out for a week because we had a big thunderstorm and knocked a bunch of trees down and knocked out the power to your local neighborhood. And you're going to be without power for 3 to 5 days. Little scenario like that. Big scenario that there isn't going to be any power grid for months or years even to consider. If you plan for that very worst case scenario, you're going to be ready for anything that's going to happen, small, medium, or large. The journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. If you can imagine all the things that you're going to have to get ready, food, clothing, water, shelter, a means to grow food, learning the skills that you're going to need to live in a post-grid, no-grid kind of a world, if you can put that in a concept and say, okay, now, how do I get there? What are the individual steps on that journey of 1,000 miles to get there? Well, you start by just defining the basic human needs food, water, shelter, and a means for self-defense. I think that covers the basics. So, if you're going to be planning for living in a post-apocalyptic world where there is no power and it's all marauding gangs and all that kind of, you name it, then you've got a whole set of things that you're going to need to be prepared for, things that you're going to have on hand, things that you're going to have available or a means to make them available to you. So when you apply that logic to the very worst case scenario that you can conjure up, and you get to the little stuff, a couple days without power because of a storm, a week without power because of whatever may happen, the volcano goes off, the earthquakes happen, power's disrupted in some form or fashion, there's an insurgent terrorist attack on the soil of our country here. Are you ready for that? Well, you start with the incremental steps, and you got to look at your water, which I think is your primary source of survival is making sure you've got water. So do you have enough water on hand in storage to get you through the first stages, the first steps of whatever kind of a scenario you want to really be planning for down the road, the end of the world kind of a scenario. But do you have enough water? Do you have a place to get water? Do you have a way to sterilize and filter that water so that it's potable and fit for human consumption for you and your family? Well, those are the first steps. We've got a lot of water storage here. Whether it's going to be enough to last us through eternity if the world comes to an end, probably not. But I've got a 275-gallon water tote that's full of rainwater that would need to be filtered, sterilized before we could actually drink it, but it's there. We've got it. I don't have to go get it. I've got two 55-gallon drums that have been filled up with rainwater from our roof catchment system. So I've got all that, and inside I've got probably 80 to 100 gallons of potable water taken right out of the tap here that are in 7-gallon, 8-gallon containers, and I've got them stacked up in our storage area so that I've got enough of that kind of water to get us through. And we buy bottled water. It's relatively inexpensive. I hate it because it comes in lousy, cheap little plastic bottles, but that's the way it comes, and ain't much I can do to change that. So let's see, we've got probably 10 cases of water right here at the homestead that could be used for immediate drinking. So water is a big thing. I think we'd have enough potable water, and we've got a Berkey water filter, got a number of the other portable backpack style water filters that I think we could have a supply of water that's going to last us for weeks and weeks and even months and months. There's a stream that runs right behind us here. There's a stream out in front of the place there, and we've got a lake that's probably, I think, 450 acres, something like that, that's within 1,000 yards of here. So if we had to haul water from the lake, we could probably do that, assuming that lake water is going to be somewhere near filterable, sterilizable, and then made potable. The other thing is food. If you got enough food, and I'm talking a mix of food, not talking about putting all your eggs in one basket with food, but do you have enough food? Now, I got a freezer full of food, and if we lose power for more than a day, that freezer full is not going to be enough to do us any good beyond the first couple of days. The initial plan would be to take all the valuable stuff, the meats, the chicken, that kind of stuff, and cook it up. And if we can generate enough of that kind of stuff, we could put it up and can it. We could have a feast that at least we'd be able to use it up. That would be kind of the first thing that you'd want to share with your family, friends, and neighbors is, hey, let's eat it up because it's not going to last forever. But then you've got to get into your store of canned goods and your store of dehydrated foods, freeze-dried foods, that kind of stuff. And every once in a while, we'll increase our food inventories by purchasing whatever may be on sale, whether it comes from Wise Foods or Emergency Essentials or Legacy Foods, wherever it comes from. We're going to pick up, one of those plastic buckets full of the freeze-dried foods. Spend $100 or $150 or even $200 on a canister like that. If we do that a couple of times a year, we just keep adding to what we've got. With the canned goods, the stuff that we can out of our garden, the tomatoes and the green beans and the carrots and all that kind of homegrown stuff, we've probably got enough to survive on in our survival pantry just in the stuff that we've put up over the last few years. We could probably survive for 6 months just on that store of canned goods that we've put up, that we've grown in our garden, that we've purchased the chicken and rendered it down and placed it into the canning jars and pressure canned it and all that. So food is very, very important. Yes, it can be replenished if you live in an area where you've got wild game, where there's deer walking around and you've got a way to hunt those deer. Yeah, you can pop a deer every once in a while and you'll get a few dozen pounds of meat out of a medium-sized deer. You got to know how to cut it up. You got to know how to butcher it properly, and those are some of the skills that you really need to be concentrating on. So if you can hunt, you've got to figure out a way to butcher that deer, how to cut it up, and then how to preserve it. Yeah, it's really neat right now that we can just take it, wrap it, and throw it in the freezer, and geez, you got venison steaks and roasts and that kind of stuff. You're good to go. Well, if you don't have any power, you're not going to have a freezer. And unless you live in Alaska somewhere, it's pretty impractical to try to freeze anything unless you've got electric power. So you're going to have to learn how to can it. I don't know any other way to really keep it. Yeah, you can salt it. You could freeze dry it, but that may need power too. You could dehydrate it, but that's going to require power. I have seen some experimentation, and I haven't done it myself, but you can use the sun to dry meats and fish, stuff like that, and have it last for a while. So those are skills that I urge every prepper to be investigating, to be learning about, and to practice as time goes by. The third thing that you want to really make sure that you've got buttoned down is your shelter. Now, for us here, we've got the house, the homestead. And I have a plan for perimeter protection that involves guards, that involves fencing, that involves patrols. But inside the house, we've got what we need. We've got alternate ways of cooking. We've got alternate ways of filtering water. We've got a place to sleep. We've got some climate-controlled issues that if we didn't have the air conditioning and if we didn't have the heat, it may be a little uncomfortable, but I've got a stack of firewood that should get us through at least one winter. I've got this big old log out back here that I've still got to cut up, and that's going to be probably a whole season's worth of firewood right back there. Got a fireplace in there. I think we'll do fine. So beyond that, if your shelter is one thing, keeping it secure is another, but you've got to have the shelter issues taken care of. Maintenance on your property, maintenance on your house goes an awful long way to keeping your overall investment, should anything ever happen, and keeping it within your budget. And the last thought is a means of self-defense. If you look at your worst case scenario, and it's because we've been invaded by a foreign force, and you've got to defend your family and your property, do you have a means of self-defense that can help you achieve that goal? Or is it just as simple as putting a few locks on the doors? Is it as simple as carrying a handgun with you at all times after the S hits the fan? That's a personal judgment that you're going to have to make, what you feel comfortable with, what the situation and what the scenario is going to demand of you in order to survive and in order to keep your family safe. But bottom line is, you've got to have a means for self-defense. So that's my thoughts on the prepper's paradox. Define the worst case scenario that you can possibly define. Put a plan together to achieve that, and then break it up into little steps. First step, that'll get you 72 hours without power. And then the next one will get you a week without power, 2 weeks without power, then a month, and then 2 months, then 3 months, and then 6 months, and a year. And go as far as you think you need to go as you plan for that worst case scenario. The paradox will work. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. This is the Prepared Suburbanite reminding you to be prepared always, and I'll see you on the next video.